Hi again, everybody. Welcome to another Primetime Funk Mods review slash walkthrough. Once again, I right after getting this thing a ways back, I just put out a very short video, essentially talking to a couple of friends about how I had not screwed up the install and about how cool it was. But I just wanted to take a minute, several minutes, and go through and kind of walk through how the thing works and how you put it together and I guess what the results are. So, without any further ado, this is my DMG. There are many DMGs like it, but this is mine. So, I really love blue. I've been kind of doing a theme over the last little while where I've been doing sort of different gradations of blue through purple. So this guy actually falls right in the middle. So I have my blue pocket, my blue DMG, a light purple pocket, and then a darker purple Game Boy Advance. So I clearly have a theme going here. Now, I really love this particular shade of blue. It's just a really nice thing to look at, and the blue and the black complement each other quite nicely. So I'm going to first, we'll take out the old EverDrive and set her aside, and we're going to take this thing apart, and then I'm going to walk you through a little bit about how it goes together and what I did and some pitfalls to avoid. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Let's have some fun. Okay, first off, I have the Clean Juice DMG XL from Retro6 and Handheld Legend. Glorious products because as much as I have gotten a lot of experience recently with lithium polymer batteries and mods and stuff, doing that to every single item that I have would be a tad exhausting. And plus, if somebody's making a great product like this, where there's been a lot of research and development put in to making it great, and making sure that it avoids the standard power pitfalls, then definitely support those people. So I actually own two of these, one in my backlit DMG, which is this guy. Gotta love the classic color scheme. And I've got that one in there as well. I love the backs that actually let you not have to figure out how to drill the hole and not screw it up yourself. So the back pieces, again, highly recommended. That was just a relief for me because I've done enough of these builds now where you go at it with a screwdriver and a Dremel and hope for the best and just measure out as best you can, but it was really nice to not have to worry about that. So there we go. So that is the DMG XL. You can get up to 24 hours of playtime on this bad boy. On an original, of course, with the backlight to it, that's going to go down exponentially, but that is still a ton of time that you do not have to be charging up rechargeables and swapping them out and bringing them with you and also bringing a recharger. It is just a relief to be able to put it in, play, and expect that I'm not going to have to charge it up for almost weeks, honestly, given the way that I play recently. I've spent a lot more time tinkering and modding and taking things apart and putting them back together again these days than I have actually playing the games, though I'm starting to get better. Yeah. Okay, so that's our Clean Juice DMG XL. Highly recommended because I have used it and it is awesome. Now we are going to... Now you can see there's definitely been some changes in here. One of the only things that you have with the DMG XL Clean Juice is that you do actually have to do some modification to the battery bay. So for me, this is an aftermarket shell. I didn't really shed any tears or having to just take some flush cutters. This is really the only thing that I used. It was a simple enough job. You just dig in and take it piece by piece. Don't rush, go through. It's very easy to take it slow and only take as much as you need, but if you go crazy with it, then you're going to end up, chipping away pieces of the internals that you don't really want to mess with. So the flush cutters are just an essential for any sort of shell modification. And then you can also use ye old craft knife as well if you need to clean it up a little bit. But for me, I wasn't too worried about it. The worst case scenario that happens with a an aftermarket case like this, or aftermarket shell, is I pay another $12 and I take the flush cutters to that one. But I really like my shade of blue, so sticking with it. Now we're going to remove the tri-wings in the battery bay first. Oh, those ones are a little tightish. There we go. Now this one, I did actually do another small internal modification to. I really didn't want to mess with it because the whole point of getting this DMG RIPS LCD screen is that a lot of this is done for you, and I did not have to learn how to do a backlight mod myself. So we are going to get down to the brass tacks. I'm just taking out our tri-wings, and then we're going to see how this new unbranded DMG RIPS V3 screen works. Now, I've talked to a couple of guys in the modding scene that had the original V2, and it was apparently kind of a consensus that there was a couple of tweaks on the V2 that needed to be done. So when this one came out, my good buddy Sam Kilgore jumped all over it, and he says there's things to be said about both versions, but one of the things that was a bit of a thorn in his side when he was going through and doing his original V2 was that the button pads were pretty picky. He really did like the different palettes, and the smart palettes that are provided are pretty cool. Again, once I got this, was the first time I ever saw that you could really do anything where it just extrapolates what colors are supposed to, it thinks that it's supposed to have on the game, and adds those into the color layers. Now, this is where you want to be gentle. So we've got all of the screws out and safely ensconced in a magnetic spot there, so I can't hit them with my big sausage fingers and accidentally lose yet another. But there is a connection here where you have your big ribbon cable. So when it comes to big ribbon cable, don't put a ton of stress on anything. We're just going to want to reach in and gently pull from one side, and there we go. So now this is a pretty standard back. So I actually had a couple of these kicking around. I still have a couple extras. And my vanity led me... Okay, so you see that the black board here, it's black, and that's one of the things I really liked, is that it was going to blend in really nicely against the blue shell. And when I finally got it done, I realized when you put them together, you could really see the green on this board here. And so my vanity and my wanting everything to be matchy-matchy at all costs led me to very carefully take a black Sharpie to this particular board here, and I technically can't recommend that as a thing that people should do, but it did definitely make it blend in for me, so it accomplished what I set out to with the Sharpie. So we're going to set this one aside because this is a standard backboard. Now I have some plans for this as well. I have a Retro 6 Clean Juice, a Clean Power DMG board coming to replace the existing power conversion in the near future. It just got lost in the mail, and Retro 6 is sending me out another one. But they're on the version 2 of that one now, so I'm actually pretty jazzed to see what that does for this one's power consumption and power usage. So I'm going to set that one aside for now. We will come back to it, of course, when we go to put everything back together. Now, this is the big show. So all of these elements that you see here come with the kit. So you actually replace the front PCB board of your DMG. And for a lot of people who've got ones where like the back board works fine, the front board is fried, the front screen isn't working at all, and not salvageable, you'd be amazed. I have a buddy, Curtis, who does repairs on DMG screens a lot. And he's gotten quite good at them. So oftentimes if you have lines going through the screen and you think that means the screen is shot, that is not necessarily the facts. Screen cancer is sort of the thing that'll tell you if your screen is shot or not, or if it's actually like a shattered screen. But if you have a screen that has lines through it on your original DMG, don't throw that sucker out yet. You might get somebody who actually knows how to fix it. I just happen to have Curtis nearby, who occasionally 3D prints me some stuff, and who gives me tips and tricks on some of these mods that I have not done yet myself. I am still working my way towards an actual backlight and bivert mod for a DMG. I'm working my way up. I've got an old screen that's got the screen is starting to develop some cancer in the top corner, so I think I'm gonna backlight it and see how it looks, and yeah, that'll be some good experience for me. So this guy here, I digress. Again, this is the DMG RIPS V3 board. So now you've got 2 points of contact. You've got a connection from the screen to the board here, and then you've got the ribbon cable, which actually connects it to the backboard for power. Now, I said that there was one internal modification I had made aside from this to the original. Now, these boards, you can find them pre-made, like pre-assembled with a speaker already connected, but those are a little tougher to find, and they also actually cost more. In this case, I just ordered the basic RIPS kit because I already knew how to do some basic micro soldering, and I actually replaced the speaker with a brand new one because I just wanted to see what would happen, and then also replaced cabling with some much more supple, newer cable that's actually got silicone wrapped wire. So since then, there's only been a couple of times when I heard a little bit of hum and hiss from the speaker, but that seemed to be more to do with my my EverDrive drawing power at the time than it did. And we're going to be able to see the clean power board at work on this thing in the near future as well, as soon as she comes in the mail. I'll most likely do a video on that installation as well, because it'll be my first. I think this time I won't even do it once before I do the video. It'll just be fresh and brand new. Okay, so we're going to take off this one. Again, we gingerly keep track of the screws as we remove them. I'm actually going to use this little planner here to put the screws where they belong. And again, here's the big hot dog fingers. I have to use this because otherwise I will lose every screw in the place. I have had some fairly complicated sessions go awry when I just accidentally like flat out dropped one and had no idea where it went, and that's the one time where you don't have any extra screws on hand. There we are. Just a couple more. One of the other things I really liked about this particular kit is it required very, very minimal alteration to the shell, which I'll go into a little bit more after. I still blew it, but just for the record, I'm going to show you. It wasn't enough that I thought I should replace the shell, but man, it was not pretty. So my shame is actually still in full force on this one. Okay, now, so we've got all the screws taken out, but one thing we're going to want to pay very close attention to is exactly how we treat this tiny little fragile cable up at the top. You know what? I can't even do it. I gotta put these on the magnetic spot as well. They're all the same size. They're all the same screw. I'm just gonna end up knocking one of those out. If you can get one of these like silicone soldering pads, I just got this from Amazon. It was not expensive, but man, this has made my life a lot easier. Because before I had to use lay down a towel, and the towel was occasionally nice because it has a little bit of give to it, so it's not constantly like pushing the buttons up when you're trying to actually like move around the boards and stuff like that. But man, this has been a godsend. So spend the 16 bucks or whatever it is on Amazon and get yourself one of these. This is the larger size one, as I knew that I'd be doing a fair amount of work with it soon. Okay, so we want to gently pull up. So this actually just, you end up sliding the thing down, and then you put this over to secure it in place. So it clips in and it will clip out. And then gently remove. Okay, so now we can remove board. Now the only other thing I did is I was tired of it rattling, so I sort of taped the speaker in place. So I'm just gonna let that little piece of electrical tape go here. And so there we go. That is our RIPS V3 board back and front. Now obviously I put in a little bit of work to get my my black and blue color scheme going. I ordered some special buttons, stuff like that. So now here's the cool part. When this is facing you, which is the case, when you're holding it, this right here completely replaces the dial from the original front board. So this actually changes your color palette scheme by clicking in. So if you remember those early Blackberries, it was a click wheel, so is this. And then the up and down actually adjusts your brightness. So you can just click quickly to flip from palette to palette and then adjust brightness as necessary. So that is really, really cool that they were able to just tap into the existing systems and make that work. So I'm going to flip this back over. And we're going to leave that there with the speaker. Now I know there's apparently some 3D printed things you can actually put in the hole first before you put the speaker in that will actually hold it in place. But honestly, one little black piece of electrical tape did it for me and blended in perfectly. So now here we have our buttons. Those are just going to fall out, so I might as well take them out now anyways. For interested parties, this is actually an NES controller D-pad, which fits beautifully and actually feels better than honestly, the buttons that came along with this shell were not super awesome. They rattled around a fair bit. So this actually kind of fixed the issue. And also making sure that I had good rubber pads did as well. But the NES controller bit is sweet. So yes, unrelated to anything else, but definitely something you should check out. So there we go. Set our buttons aside and we don't have to be like gingerly holding it the whole time. So here is now the thing that I really don't want to mess with. This screen, man, yeah, obviously it's a high grade LCD and we can move it. I did not put any adhesive in. So this one I can actually flip over and show you. So what I did do was, because I didn't really like a lot of the screen bleed, is I put a little bit of black electrical tape over top and bottom. That is purely a you call. The other thing that I did is, this is a 3D printed bracket for it that I highly recommend. There are a few different ones out there. I know Retro 6 and Handheld Legends sell their own, I believe. I went with a different design than the one that you usually find on the website, because this one just, yeah, it fit. Now this one, there is, and this is where I usually say don't trust the brackets too much, because technically speaking, there are a lot of different builds out there and a lot of different shells. Now this bracket originally, if you look, it's flush with the top of the screen, right? It originally came with a fair bit more. It was raised like a few millimeters off the top and hooked around the top screen. Now that's all well and good. For one, it was tough to get on there, and I was really, really worried because this screen is not like a standard, not a standard screen by any stretch. This comes with its own particular deal. A lot of those aftermarket screens that people use for the GBA and for the Game Boy Color builds, you can get those again for 15 bucks. This one, not so much. So be very careful with this screen when you're handling it. Do not bend, do not apply pressure if at all you can avoid it. And in this particular case, that was what I was thinking, was that I did not want to apply any additional pressure to this screen from the top or otherwise, because I would have had to like bend slightly and hook the thing around. And once I finally did, very, very gingerly, and tried to fit it in, it did not fit. So if I tried to, I guess I could have had a few options. I would have been able to like try and Dremel away some of the internal shell, and it's all fine and good if this bracket actually does fit on an original DMG shell because this is aftermarket. Fair enough. I'm all for the original shells, but again, I don't really love modifying original Nintendo shells in the first place. I don't like cutting into like actual pieces of history. This is plastic. Someone can make this again in 14 seconds, but the original DMG shells, I'd have to have a very compelling reason to cut into original Nintendo shell. So this guy, yes, I used no adhesive because it was not required. And I don't really have any issues with like dust or anything getting in there either. So I'm going to set this one aside gently as well, and we'll come back to that. Now, the other thing that I've got in here, I'm not going to take out this one. I'll just show you another one. This is a little 3D printed screen bracket. It cuts down on the light bleed. Again, I was able to, because I have a friend who just lives down the way and who has a 3D printer. He printed me off like 4 or 5 of these things. I think maybe because A, it was so flimsy, and B, it uses so few materials in the printing. But this thing is a revelation because you fit it in and it actually kind of cuts off any of the light bleed that can naturally happen with these things. I'm actually going to be taking apart my DMG backlit one and adding one of these in there too, because I'm actually curious what happens when you can cut out some of the light bleed on the backlit and biverted screens as well. But it made a big difference in just the general look. Like it cut down on a lot of the bleed coming through and any of the stuff coming in from the edges as well. So the clarity of the screen went up just with this one little dude. And these can be easily found on Thingiverse. I highly recommend if you can get like a local place to 3D print your stuff. It means that the stakes aren't quite so high. If you order it along with a kit and then you bust it, or if you paid like $6 for it and then plus shipping, it's going to be a lot harder for you to make the hard decisions like I did, which was snipping off the actual top piece on this one. And I regret nothing because it has worked beautifully. The other piece that actually comes with, sorry, I digress again. There is a piece, this guy right here, comes with some very light adhesive. There are a couple of tines off of the board, some contacts there, that actually require this thing to be kind of like held in place. It also, I think, just keeps the board from wobbling in that area. So just keep in mind that this thing right here is not something you want to throw out. It's just a piece of foam rubber, but it is there for a purpose. And you can see the matching spot where it actually contacts on the board. So that's it. We've got it all apart. You've kind of seen how it all goes together. Don't be too afraid if you have even like a tiny little bit of experience with soldering. Don't be afraid to order the separate one. I actually originally had just removed a speaker from the other board with the bad screen from the DMG board before, and I had actually replaced the speaker and just connected it to that one. There's really just like 2 stick through and solder spots. I'd of course, like as I said before, did replace this one after, but that's a personal choice. So yeah, aside from all that, I got myself a really nice plain black custom screen. Okay, one thing that you might want to take into account, I stuffed a little bit of clear duct tape into this hole because holy cow, was that red LED on this board ever piercing. That thing is like the eye of Sauron when you turn the thing on. I couldn't even play it in bed because it would just be like hitting me in the eyeball. It was like a laser pointer from a Beretta. So don't be afraid to do something like that. The little bit of clear duct tape just kind of diffuses the light. You can still definitely see it. And from the front, you can just see like a little bit of white there. But when the red light's on, yeah, trust me, it's fine. So we're going to put this all back in place, get it turned on, and see how she works. So avoid any rookie mistakes. Let's get the actual buttons in there. Again, I like the arrows. NES pad button. Thanks for that tip, Sam. Oh, I told you I would tell you about my shame. You don't need to do this. For some reason, I had it in my brain that I was going to need to actually trim some of the, jeez, some of the surrounding shell to be able to get this thing to stick in place. I did not. I didn't need to mess with that at all, and you can see it from the front. I get to see my shame from over modifying every single day. Oh, before we get any further, there is some basic modification that needed to be done with this thing. So on the shell, they actually have you go through, and the beauty part is that all of this stuff is already like cleared and down, so you don't have to worry about it being level or not. You only need to remove these 2 posts, and I would suggest, yeah, usually just the flush cutters that I was showing you earlier. And then there's 1 post along here as well. It all, if you've got a decent quality ABS plastic, it all came off pretty easily. So there's usually 3 of these little guys. I removed that one, and then just the 2 posts at the top. Again, you want to be really gentle with them because you don't really want the damage or the difference to show through, and it kind of does, but I can live with it. Of course, if you're actually using a non-clear shell, none of this is going to matter. You can actually do this, and I wouldn't be able to see my shame if I had a non-clear one. But such as it is, it's fine. I'm just going to blow this thing out a little bit. Dust is always an ever-present thing. I'd like to set up a clean room, but I do not have that kind of cash. We've got our buttons. These buttons are already starting to show some wear and tear on the front. That's good. It means I'm actually playing with my toys, not just buying them. Upside down. There we go. Okay, now here's where we get gentle again. Gonna make sure we don't have any dust on that screen. It looks good. Don't mess with what ain't broken. It's being a little stubborn. There we go. Yeah, honestly, that is enough tension for my liking. I cannot even imagine. Yeah, there was just nowhere the amount of clearance that you would need to fit that in top. So if you do ever use this particular bracket, clip off that top and feel good about it. There are some other brackets. I know Handheld Legend, and yeah, I think Handheld Legend has a completely different one that just goes across the back and connects to the brackets or to the screw posts, as opposed to this one that just attaches to the 2 smaller ones. That's just a personal preference, really. This one worked fine for me, and it was a simple, quick print from a buddy. So this is one of the aforementioned moments when the towel thing would work, because it just keeps pushing the buttons back up on me here. Just getting our speaker correct. There we are. So we have general fitting, and now we go back to Phillips head screws. And again, even if it's ABS plastic, just try not to over tighten this stuff. If you're like me, you're going to be taking this thing apart and putting it back together for years to come, adding little modifications and just fiddling, even just pulling it apart to blow out dust. So the less resistance you have, the better on the screws. You don't want to strip the screw posts, or you're going to be taking it apart even more to put it in a new shell and then have to modify a new shell as well to fit this thing. So less work for you, long run. Okay, so now we are secured again. So what's our next step? We will want to first thing I will want to do is resecure that Bush League black electrical tape and make sure that my speaker doesn't keep rattling around. I really should look into that 3D printed alternative for this. But for now, the black electrical tape cost me nothing. And like I said, it still blends in with the existing color scheme here. So I'll probably stick with that. Honestly, if I had half a brain, I would have used black wire as well. But, you know, it's not like there's a secret that there's a speaker in there. Okay, so now let's be very careful with this. Getting it back in. There we go. It does actually feed in a little bit. And now we have a secured screen ribbon. And now, one of my least favorite parts, reattaching this cable. The ribbon cable is always super awkward to put back into place. I always end up like wondering if I'm actually going to accidentally wreck the cable. Also, there's a lot of very pointy things on this board, and I always end up sticking myself. There we go. So now we have our board connected and secured. Looks like screen connection is good, ribbon connection is good, and now we can just put it all back together. Trade out our Phillips for our tri-wing. I'll always start with the battery bay. Don't know why. There we go. I do still like using the old Wow Stick electric screwdriver because it just tightens as much as it needs to. Most of my concerns about stripping are unfounded with this one, so. There we go. And one more. Yeah. I'm going to have a look around all the edges, make sure that everything is as tight and flush as it should be. It's just every once in a while that the electric screwdriver needs a little bit of an extra tighten. Just a tiny little bit. Hey, look at that. I didn't forget to put the power button on this time. It's good And this thing has a bit of a torque feature, like it's got a little bit of give to it. So just in case, I think they already knew that sometimes you're going to need like a little bit of extra tighten or a little bit of loosening manually by yourself before you can use the electric feature. So let's put our clean juice DMG XL back in. Front contacts first and then fit down. And our fitted battery bay. And there we are. So let's have a little bit of a look through the features. I showed you the innards. Now, I told you before, we have a click wheel, so we can actually press in and change color palettes. The blue is one of my personal favorites for obvious reasons. And there's your brightness up and down. The blue one doesn't really need a lot of dimming because it's already kind of... I love the blue, but it's not the most practical color for the gaming. You flip to green, that's most likely your original Game Boy feel. Red, it doesn't mess with your night vision, I guess. Yeah, sure. And this looks kind of like the backlit biverted DMG. I kind of like the washed yellow that I've got on my original one as well, so sometimes I'll just flip it to that because I still really like that color scheme. Now, one of the things you see with this is it doesn't have like the whole retro pixel display, and Funny Playing has a retro pixel version that I'm kind of dying to try out based on my experience with my Pocket, but I don't know if you can see it this close, but this does have a scan line effect that is really sweet. It's not like crystal. The scan line, it just adds some depth and some flavor to it, I guess. Yeah, that appeals to me. So I've actually really liked the scan line look and feel to this one as well. So we had more of a lavender. Now let's go back here. There we go. On the older one, it was like just a straight up purple. I kind of like the lavender. It's a bit lighter, and there's already the blue there if you want one of the darker palettes. Plain old black and white. And then this is where it comes into the smart palettes. And this is pretty fascinating because the logic is all built into the board, right? And in some of the other ones where it's not a board, the ribbons that they have in the smaller units. But let's go to Super Mario Land. Why not? So we're going to go to plain black and white, and we get to see Super Mario Land in detail here. Now, we flip it, and now you've actually got some added colors on there. There's sort of like that lavender pink, yellow, and then you've got another option where it actually adds the blue in there. So you got your blue, your green. This is kind of where I keep mine most of the time. The red and the yellow has some nice definition. You can really see the scan line with the purple. Then your black and white, it's a bit more of a clean appearance. And then you've got your color palettes on there. Either basic black or also blue in there too. So that is really sweet. So that kind of wraps it up for me. I think I'm going to leave it on green because it feels familiar and warm and fuzzy. So thanks so much for watching another one of these videos. I try to be as informative as I can and also kind of show you how someone who hasn't been doing this for very long approaches it, and talk a little bit about my experience with doing the mod. But either way, in the meantime, support people who make good products. I bought this one specifically because I knew that Handheld Legend is a reputable site, and so I got the RIPS V3 from them. I also got the Clean Juice DMG XL from Handheld Legend as well, and I highly recommend both things. They do an awesome job. Okay, well, I think that's it for me. Have a good night, and we'll see you on the next job.